Finance Committee. It is Tuesday, November 12th. We have a quorum present and we are certified and compliant with the open meetings laws. Only staff and committee in the room, so unless there's somebody online, no, only staff, committee online too. So no public comments. Right into communications.
Wisconsin Act 12 for 2023 dealt with the supplemental shared revenue, and as part of that act, it eliminated the personal property tax for businesses. So part of that act was the state said, or the legislature says, they're going to give us funds to make up for the lost revenue that we would have from it. We had to actually have a meeting with Department of Revenue to get walked through kind of a very high level. The net new construction for our record year was about $284,000. And then the state calculated that we were going to get $154,000 in lost revenue, so that gave us as additional revenue. So technically, the net new construction increase was lowered down to $130,000, but like I said, they gave us another $154,000. As we were going through it, we realized internally that the manufacturing component was, if I can add in my head, 69% of our total, which I wasn't anticipating that at all when I did the calculations. But the state has left us whole for that audit adjustment. So just bring it up to you folks because it affects the adopted budget for tonight. Any questions on that topic?
No, it was good to get clarity on it though.
Next up is the appraisal contract for 532 East Main Street. That's the depot building that the chamber is currently in. We've signed a contract to get the building appraised, just so we know what the value is. There's a potential buyer for it. I did discover a whoops, and we need to look into it further, but that building straddles two properties, one of which is owned by the city, one of which is owned by the DOT. So we got to get that cleaned up, whether we're going to sell the building or not. Mayor, is there anything you wanted to add on that topic?
No, I don't think so. It's preliminary. I think we talked about it at one of the council meetings, and we made mention there was interest in the building, but right now we don't have an offer and nothing is imminent.
And that, how do we rectify the lot situation, the building on two lots?
I just discovered it, I believe, this week. So I've asked Chris for some information. We'll probably have to get Rick Manthe involved. I'm assuming to simplify things, it's probably just going to have the DOT transfer that property to us, and then we can figure out what we're going to do from there.
Okay. Does that require like a CSM to get the exact measurements, or?
I don't know
Okay.
how that's going to
Okay.
work.
No worries. More curiosity, I suppose.
Yeah, I would imagine we might have to get a surveyor out there or something. But we'll let you know when we get to that point. There may be an easy explanation. We just don't know if there is yet.
Correct, because I was basing my assumption based upon the maps in Access Dane, and they're not always 100% accurate, so.
I was thinking that it was the railroad that had owned the other half, so I was a little more nervous about that.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have any other questions on the communications? next item is the approval of the minutes of October 22nd meeting, and I would entertain a motion for that.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Patrick. Any questions, edits, anything on the minutes? All right, seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, minutes are accepted. All right, bring us the budget amendments.
Okay. The resolution that's in the packet for both the Finance Committee and Council assumes that all the budget amendments are going to be recommended for approval from the Finance Committee. I don't know how much detail you want to go into it, but a very high-level overview. Number one, the police department wanted to move overtime between dispatch and the sworn officers. That resulted in, because we were increasing general wages as opposed to protective, it's a slight decrease in the levy for that department. Next one is risk management. We finally got the MPIC numbers from them, so I could kind of true up everything. And for good or bad, I had included the workers' comp in there twice. So that resulted in, I'm going from memory, about a $78,000 decrease in the levy needed for risk management. The third one is general revenues. With Stoughton Utilities, we had their presentation on the budget last meeting, and I had neglected to make sure prior to the meeting that their amount for the pilot payment to the city matched our receivable. So we trued that up. That gave us quite a bit of additional income. That was the opportunity I took to lower the rent to Stoughton Utilities based upon what the PSC rules are. So we did that when I found more revenue to speak of. Fourth one is for Public Works. They are, we did not include the auction value of one vehicle, so we included that. The price of one of the patrol trucks went up quite a bit, and so we were raising the amount of debt that we're going to issue for the subsequent year. But there was no effect on the property tax levy. The one with the fee schedules, we've added that this year into the budget. It's similar to what I've seen and Nicole Marie has seen at prior employers, where the fee schedule is included in the budget, just for information so that everybody knows about that. So you'll see that going forward. With Dane County increasing their dog license fees, that was our opportunity to kind of true up our dog license fees in the clerk's office, so that lowered revenue or increased revenue by a few $1,000s. So bottom line, we're now at approximately $112,000 of fund balance being applied to the levy. When we get to the levy, the budget, the mayor and I have a 6 or 7 page PowerPoint. We're trying to keep it real brief because we know this is going to be a long meeting tonight. So I went over these 5 budget amendments real quick. Does anybody have any questions on them at all?
No, I didn't see any real, nothing jumping out, so.
Yeah, it wasn't anything spectacular, but we were cleaning things up. I was obviously trying to get down to having as little fund balance applied as we could.
Right, and I thought we were at, I know I had a note of it somewhere.
It was at 180 at one point.
That's right. That's probably back here somewhere. Anyway, I'll remake a note of it. All right. And we certainly appreciate all the sleuth work that went into finding every nickel and dime possible.
We were trying very hard. Nicole Murray was extremely helpful in this budget process, with her past experience, and then she dug into things and helped me look at things that I haven't had time to do in the past.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate that looking. Again, hopefully we don't have to do it again in the following year, but
Well, you're always going to have to look at it again.
for sure.
We're not going to have another record net new construction, so
Yep.
it's going to be tight again.
Yep. Well, we'll have our work cut out for us then.
Yep.
All right. Anybody have any other questions or thoughts about the budget amendments? All right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
If I can
Yep.
just speak on the resolution for a minute. Similar to last year, I highlighted the things that were, I thought, important that the elected officials and the members of the public would be interested in. This is the first time we've done the carry forwards in the budget process, so that increased the numbers by quite a bit. So I spelled out where everything was from, and fund balance applied not just for the tax levy, but all funds are included.
Yeah, I think at least those 2 points for sure will be worth an extra note about, because they're new.
Right. And honestly, we've got way too much in bond proceeds that we haven't spent. But we need to bring it out so everybody's aware of it.
Yep.
That was the only thing I wanted to bring up.
Okay. All right, now I'd entertain a motion to approve the amendments to council.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Patrick. Any other questions, last thoughts on the amendments? All right, hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that resolution to council.
And
Next
again,
up-
as I stated, the one that council packet assumes that you folks were going to approve it, or
Yep.
recommend for approval.
Yep. I mean, easier in a package deal, but I suppose if anyone wants to tangle with those separately,
I've got my work
Can-
papers available that if they want to delete any of those or add something more, we can
Sure.
work through it.
so I think if we will have to present them as the package, but maybe let them understand that if they have a qualm with something, that we can parcel it out.
Right. Okay.
Got it. All right, next resolution is for the declaration of official intent.
This will be the third year that you've seen it. This is basically getting paperwork on file with Ellers and the bond council that if we expend any funds before the actual debt issue occurs, we're legally allowed to do so. So it's just dotting the i's, crossing the t's. Like I said, this was the third year that we've done it.
And this one came about, or we make this declaration was it based on a state law or?
No, this is based upon IRS rules.
Okay, perfect. All right. And maybe we'll just reiterate that too. I'm gonna make a note about that.
Yeah, it says right in the resolution, it's
Yep.
in regards to U.S. Treasury regulations.
Perfect. All right, just so everybody understands those instead of just glossing them over as mundane or routine. All right, anybody have questions on the declaration of intent? All right, if none, then I would entertain a motion to recommend that to council. You guys want to switch it up this time?
I'll move to recommend to council. Second.
Motion by Patrick and second by Ozzy. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. Next up is a conflict waiver agreement for the Yahara Bay distributors and Stafford Rosenbaum.
Just one quick comment.
Yep.
The declaration of intent, I just put time sensitive to keep it
Yep.
together with the budget.
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good.
This one is another time-sensitive matter. We did receive the offer to purchase on the Stoughton Utilities EMS building from our Yahara Bay distributors. A section of Stafford Rosenbaum has done work for them. So Stafford Rosenbaum asked us to sign that conflict of waiver resolution so that they can deal with both sides of the parties. As Rick will probably explain tonight, they put firewalls up so that there's no information shared that both could see.
Mhm.
And we put it as time sensitive just so that the matter can move forward.
Right.
As opposed to waiting another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. I mean, everybody should be familiar with conflict waiver agreements in here.
This is the third one this year, I believe.
It is, yeah, but, I mean, it happens.
Right.
Not a big deal. Any questions on the waiver agreement?
I just have a question. What
Yep.
property is they're purchasing? 600 South 4th Street.
That would be the utilities
Still
building.
utilities building.
All right, any follow-up, Ozzy?
No.
Okay. All right, then I would entertain a motion to recommend this agreement to council. Resolution to council. Tanya's online.
Offering to share the wealth. Otherwise, I'll move.
All right,
To
motion by
recommend to
Pat.
council.
Second by Ozzy.
You guys are just too quick. I can't get off mute fast enough.
Any other questions on the waiver agreement? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council. Next are some reports on the revolving loan program activity for third quarter 24.
This is informational only for you so that you can see what came in. Fosdale Bakery did pay off their loan, put down almost $10,000 to do it, but they obviously had enough cash reserves that they just wanted to be done with it. For the second, maybe third time this year, we've had to say something to them that their paperwork didn't match. So we contacted them and said, you short paid us. Well, nope, the first time they short paid us, and so then they sent the second check and they overpaid us. So they said, keep the overpayment and we'll subtract it out next quarter. So we'll see what happens. But at least they've gotten their timeliness issue done. It used to be we were waiting for months to get paid.
No, he's talking about Wybick.
Yeah, Wybick, I'm sorry. Yeah. Wybick collects on behalf of the city for both the ARPA revolving loan and the RDA revolving loan. And Fosdale paid off their RDA loan sometime in third quarter.
I was looking at some of the other ones that are in here. I mean, I see some of these are these relatively new, that some of the payoff amounts are,
Yeah, we,
Low.
especially the ARPA ones are brand new. The Northern Boutique, they took out some money last year, paid off that loan, and then essentially borrowed $100,000 during this year. So, yep, there are some large balances out there just because a lot of them are new this year.
okay, well, it's there to get used, so
Yep.
good to see. Anybody have any questions about that revolving loan program? All right, next up is resolution on the salary of elected officials and or refusal of salary.
This is something new for you folks. Past practice that I saw with all the other county governments that I worked for is you have to set the salaries of the elected officials before they take out nomination papers. I couldn't find any evidence that we've actually said what the salaries of the elected officials were. So I took this instance, took this as the chance to actually put it in writing what the salary is for the council members, because we will have one, maybe two people taking out papers on December 1st. I could not find anywhere that we had noted the methodology for the mayor's increase each year. In the past, it had been based upon the CPI, but at least the past few years, we've been trying to, I looked at it and said, CPI isn't what the general employees get, so let's try and be consistent so the mayor's in the same boat as everybody else. And then, although Judge Dirks is recently in office, I don't see him changing. I put this, his salary, his position salary in also so that we have notice of it. We've done it in the past, but we also need to inform the newly elected people that they can waive their salary if they wish to. And so this also combines that. And then the plan is that this resolution will be going forward with any time anybody takes out nomination papers, so they are notified of the salary and waiver if they wish to do so.
Yeah, I think the only place that you'll find any, we did talk about older salaries,
I
probably
think we talked about it. I was here, it was shortly after I came here.
Yeah,
But I couldn't find any evidence we had actually published it.
yeah, we didn't do anything about it. We just chose to do nothing about it, of which we didn't have anything written, so.
Right, so now I'm taking the chance to get it in writing.
Yep, perfect. All right, does anybody have any questions about that? And you've seen the comparisons that were included within there, so we're on par.
Right. And because of the number of statutory references, Rick Manthe looked at it to make sure everything was okay.
Great.
Yeah, it seems to me that as far as my salary, I think that personnel might have had a recommendation on that, but I don't think it's
so.
gotten to the council yet. That was a couple meetings ago, so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and while it isn't listed as time sensitive for tonight,
No.
it's got to get passed before December 1st, so.
Yeah, and I mean, it kicks in with the new term, so if the mayors or an existing councils were to, or the judge even, it wouldn't kick in until their next term anyway.
Correct. You can't change the salary of an elected official midterm. You know, the mayor's, for instance, is based upon what the employees get, but that's known, you know, that it's going to be a percentage to be determined.
Isn't that part of what the Teapot Dome scandal was about?
I know that name, I couldn't tell you what it is anymore.
That gonna be part of your
It'll
historical
be my history,
facts?
yeah, that's it. All right, any other questions on what we're intending with the resolution on the salaries?
Yeah, and then the other thing is we did have some comparables that I think you added in here that we received from, I think it was Dane County Cities and Villages, if I remember right.
Correct.
So at least you kind of knew what the going rate was.
Yep.
And I think we're similar to the school district. At their annual meeting is when they look at theirs, and I briefly glanced at, I think we're in the ballpark with them, if I
Yeah.
remember right.
And I actually plagiarized this idea of the resolution when I saw the school district doing it with the budget. I'm like, this is the perfect time to do it.
Sure is, yep. Yeah, and I know that, at least through many iterations of that, you know, we always voted to flatten it out or, you know, take no increase or anything like that. So
Right.
it was, I don't even know when the last time it would have been increased.
True, and like I said, I couldn't find any record in resolutions, and I know we didn't include it as part of the budget documentation that went to the public.
We all just consider it's a labor of love. That's what this is. All right. Any other questions on the resolution for this? All right. If none, I would entertain a motion to recommend to council.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council.
Motion by Ozzy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Patrick. Yep. Any other questions? All right, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that resolution to council. Then that opens up our discussion about, I think Greg wanted to talk more about increasing the salaries in the future at a future time. So
Correct.
this would be one that would, again, would only kick in at the beginning of a new or newly re-elected alder's term.
Correct, and assuming that you,
So it would take effect in 3 years, correct?
Right.
Yep.
We talked about that
And
4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
so if the council is interested in doing it, you're taking out papers for those people running for office for the April 25 election, so it would be April 26 election would be the first time anybody could potentially have an increase. But I'm gonna just let you folks talk however you want it on this. I have no recommendation either way.
And I think, you know, because it was, Greg was, really wanted to get on this, but if he's not here tonight, then, unless anybody else wants to discuss anything about it, we can postpone that discussion until, Greg is back to talk about it. All right. Committee wishes to postpone that discussion until Greg can return and add to the discussion about it. All right. Next up is a discussion about future referendum potentially to the excess current levy limits.
That should
Exceed.
read exceed.
Yep.
Again, this was something that Alder Jensen asked to be on the agenda for discussion. Honestly, we will have to consider it, or at least talk about it going forward. I don't know when you folks want to start talking about it, but as I said, he wanted it on there, so that's the reason we have it here.
Yeah, I think we should certainly at least approach the subject. Do we know what percentage of the referendums that were on in November here, what ones were successful? I thought it looked like all of them.
In Dane County, the one in Monona passed by 32 votes. The one in
Okay.
Fitchburg actually failed by about 1,000.
Okay.
The one in Middleton, which was simply to raise their stormwater utility fee, because they had enacted theirs after the law had changed. So they have to pass a referendum in order to raise their ERU. So that passed. And then there was also one in Maple Bluff that wasn't on our list, and I believe that one passed. And then Sun Prairie is imposing a wheel tax.
Mhm.
And then I think Oregon is talking about next year, and there might have been one other, and it'll be interesting to see if Fitchburg comes back with something. Madison passed their referendum, plus they had 2 school referendums,
Ooh.
so they had 3 total. And what made Fitchburg really interesting is, so they had a referendum, for the city of Fitchburg, but there's residents in Fitchburg that live in Madison, Verona, or school districts of Madison, Verona, and Oregon. So it gets really complicated and confusing when you're talking about Fitchburg, because some of those had other referendums or had recently had other referendums, that may have contributed, to theirs not being successful. There were other ones statewide. If you want, we can dig in a little deeper and get that list, but I anticipate there'll be other communities having similar conversations. As you might recall, in our budget, we proposed and you guys recommended that we use money out of our fund balance to balance the budget. That number has come down. You'll see that at the council tonight. I want to say it was, what, 100
About 112.
Yeah, so at one point we were thinking it was going to be closer to 200, so, Director Ellinger and Nicole Marie as well has really worked hard to ratchet that number down, and we appreciate that. We still have a healthy fund balance after all of that, so we have some flexibility. The danger is if you wait too long, then you have no flexibility, but we also have a responsibility to exhaust all of our efforts. With the school district had recently passed 2 referendums, a building one and an operations one. So you're going to see that our levy is anticipated to go up, and so is theirs. It's going to be fairly significant to the taxpayers, but we still have to be able to provide services, and even with a tax increase, it doesn't provide us the opportunity to fill positions that we need to accommodate the growth, and that's kind of the conundrum that we're going to run into.
Dave, did you have a projection for, so we were at, the 100 to 200 of general fund balance for this year. Did you have a projection?
There is
for
actually
25?
a updated projection in the city council packet, the 6 or 7 page PowerPoint that we have.
All right, so that, just
It's
to give.
not too much different than what was there
Right.
previously.
Yeah, just to give anybody an idea, like, here's what we could be facing in the following year, but just to prepare for that. So I think that would factor into when we decide that we would have to talk about referendum. But at least, for sure, like a year prior to when we would have to adopt a budget, I would think we'd have to be in structuring it.
Yeah, and one of the things that we'll more than likely want to do is talk to the other municipalities, whether they were successful or not, and figure out what tools that they use in order to get to the point where they could draft and ultimately ask the questions. I know some of them hired consultants to help them facilitate the process. It's pretty common. I'm sure you went through that with the school district.
Yeah.
To put together, that process and the communication strategy so people understand the whys and the how much and the what ifs. So those are the types of things that I think you guys will want to consider, and we can certainly reach out to other communities when you feel it's appropriate and try to, maybe bring some folks in here and see what they have to say.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe one early bit of data I think that we could have on it. We've got the surrounding, or at least within the county, the referendums that were successful and not successful. If we could expand that out statewide and see comparable community sizes, like 10 to 20,000.
I have to
population.
assume that the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, the Counties Association, and the equivalent to the School District Association is going to be tabulating that. If they don't, I'm sure the Wisconsin Taxpayer Alliance will be doing it.
Okay, yeah, that'd be another good piece of data on there to see what their success rate at apples to apples comparison. And then do we have to know if we have a statutory time as to when we would have to declare?
It's very specific.
Yep.
We can bring that forward to you again, but it depends upon if there is a general election versus primaries. It depends on if a school district is having one. So there's like 5 different calendars you have to look at to see when you can do it.
Okay. All right. Maybe, I don't know would Attorney Manthe look at that, or?
Yeah, you could certainly look at that and give
That's
us a memo.
readily
There's a
available.
window. I
Okay.
can't remember if it's like 2 to 3 month window, and it can't be too early and it can't be too late. It's got to fall into that window, and between the city attorney and the clerk, they can probably come up with that language.
Okay.
Yeah,
this
and
is
we've
long.
actually we were listening to a webinar in relation to the levy limits, and that was brought up. There was actually a slide deck that Ellers had with that exact information, so we'll plagiarize and pull that out.
Right, I guess for something like that, I would just rather have all the ducks in a row before we ever even need to consider it. Because it's a looming possibility, so I don't want to treat it as though it's not really there. Anybody else have any thoughts about?
I can see it happening sooner than later, especially after the current election. It goes really fast.
Yeah, and the other thing we'll be monitoring is, next year the governor will be doing his 2-year budget.
Yeah.
I'm not overly optimistic that they'll address the spending limits, but I know that the school districts are already, being vocal about it. But one of the things that occurred during the election with the new maps, the gaps at the state level, between the Republicans and Democrats, the gaps got smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could go either way as far as coming together on these, what I would consider bipartisan issues. Others might disagree. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think right now it's too early to tell.
Yep.
Tim, we actually had a online discussion with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities today, and Jerry DeShane had indicated that it might be harder to get legislation through with the closer differences, because in the past the Republicans could have some outliers who would disagree on it and it would still pass. Now if they have a couple outliers, there may not be enough to get it through. So take it for what it's worth. That's what Jerry DeShane had said.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine they could do less legislation in the next session than they did in the last.
Don't give them the opportunity to prove you're right.
All right. Any other things on referendum?
Do you want the referendum as a kind of standing item going forward for finance? Or as we get information?
Maybe just as we get information and then just have it in as, maybe just as a communication.
Okay.
So we've at least approached the subject here. It's out, it's in the open. So any data, any pieces that we get in there, just add them in during the communication. I think that'll be sufficient,
Will do.
until we, you know, have to begin working on it in earnest. All right, that runs us through our business. We've got a few future agenda items out there, which, you know, good job, Finance Department, on whittling that down over the year. Fantastic.
We try. We're
Hey, there
not
was
exactly
some,
twiddling our thumbs looking for work.
there were some biggies that were in there too, so kudos.
Thank you.
All right, anybody have anything they want to add to the future agenda items? All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Patrick. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.